Well, good afternoon, good evening, good morning, wherever you may be. Thank you very much for joining us today at HuddleUK's very first podcast, our first live session. On top of all the content we've got on the website, we thought we'd make it more work for ourselves, more fun, more content for you. It's playoff season. It's the fun time of the year for those 14 teams that are in it. Still at this stage, I'm delighted to say that I'm joined by Mark, who's Denver Broncos are one of those teams, as are the team dear to my heart, the Los Angeles Chargers. We're going to have a bit of AFC West banter today, which I'm looking forward to. Mark, thank you for joining us. Tell us a bit about yourself, the Broncos EU page, which you've got, where it came from and how it grew.
I mean, first of all, thank you so much for having me on. I believe this is the first show, so it's an absolute honour to be invited on. Obviously, AFC rivals, AFC West rivals. It's been an amazing year for our division. We've got 3 playoff teams coming out of the AFC West, so it's just absolutely crazy. Like I say, I'm Mark. I run Broncos Broncos Europe. We're a fan group for the Denver Broncos that covers the whole of Europe, hopefully. We try and be the biggest, the best sort of coverage over this side of the pond, and we've got sort of a massive following. We've been featured by the Denver Broncos themselves and invited us out. So we work quite closely with them and try and gain as many followers as we can along the way. So we've got Discord, we've got Facebook, and we've got a Twitter page as well where you can follow us. So all good fun.
Absolutely, plug yourself at any point as well along the lines today as well. You're more than welcome to. You said there that you've worked alongside the team themselves. What was it like going over there and being a part of that?
I mean, I went over for the Chiefs game last year. It was in an absolute snowstorm. It's the first time I've ever been over to Denver. We landed, me and my dad landed in a snowstorm on the runway. It was just, I think it was -8, -9 there when on game day. The stadium was just covered in snow. Great to keep your beer cold in the stands, but got a message while we were there and they said we're coming up to pick you up. Brought down onto sidelines. Got to stand there, had an interview for the Denver Broncos website. You can find that on my Twitter. That's linked there, of course. Got to plug that one. So lots of photos, just core memories for myself and my dad there, who I'm slowly getting to be a Denver Broncos fan himself.
It's been a bit of a hassle, a bit of a struggle to get him into it, is it?
We're huge football fans, over in the UK, and he's slowly getting there. He's not watched many games on TV, but he keeps up. He puts Denver Broncos into Google, and he'll watch the score, and he'll ring me. Oh, what's gone on there? And I have to explain the rules to him a little bit. But by the fourth quarter in Denver itself, he was cheering along and joining in the shouts and the chants, and he was understanding it a little bit better. So he's getting there.
I assume it was through you that he became a fan. Where did your love for the Broncos come from?
Yeah, I mean, this is an interesting story that I've told many, many times, of course. I worked at summer camp in California when I was younger, back in, I think it was 2013, 14, something around that. I stayed somewhere after summer camp was finished, stayed with some friends, and there it was the Raiders-Broncos game was on. I had nowhere else to stay, and the mum of the person I was staying with said, if you want to eat tonight here, you need to support the Raiders. And the dad went, if you need to stay here tonight, you need to support the Broncos. I was like, well, I can get away with not eating, but I need somewhere to stay, otherwise I am totally screwed. So Denver Broncos it was, and I've supported them ever since. So it's been a rough sort of past 8 years, but obviously in that time we've had 2 Super Bowl appearances, 1 win. So I can't really complain, can I?
No, it's far more interesting in my story, which was my friend making me click stop on a vine during university and ending up with the Chargers. It's so yeah, fair play. I like that story very much. You've created this. I not to no mick taking, but I did see that the Twitter account was created in I think April 2017, which means since that's been running, there hasn't been a single Broncos playoff game, has there? It's been a tough few years.
I mean, we've hardly had a winning season, let alone a playoff appearance. I mean, I think this is the first winning season for 5-6 years. It's been rough. We've not really, we've had a massive quarterback carousel that's been ridiculed on so many of the coverage over the years. They seem to take great delight in it. But we seem to have settled on one now. He seems to be the quarterback of the future. We're franchise quarterback in Bo Nix. I'm excited to see where that will go under Sean Payton. It's the first time that Sean has drafted a quarterback that he wanted. So it seems to have gone well, so far he was confident in his choice. But like you said, it's been a rough few years for us Broncos fans over here. But we've grown the group despite that. So a few winning seasons, you never know where it could go.
No, absolutely not. I've got a lot of Bo Nix related stuff to ask you going forward in this episode. I just want to finish off the background. How have you found out? We were talking about it just before we went live about sort of both of your site and HuddleUK. Just the foundation or the drive behind it is to create this community this side of the pond of NFL fans. Yours specific to a team. I was just hoping to get everyone together. Really, I know it's a bit ambitious, but just this big community, whatever city. Hopefully, in the future, do meetups, which I'm sure has been part of your plan as well. What is the Broncos community like? If there's a fans listening or people who are looking to get into the sport listening to this episode, how would you sell the team?
You know what? The Broncos over in UK specifically, and around Europe, we're actually quite a big, a well supported team. There's people all around the country, all around the continent. I've made friends for life. All over the place. We might speak different languages, but we all sort of have that one love, don't we? That is Denver Broncos, and you've got your Chargers there, which I'm sure I've got fans somewhere out there. We'll just have to find a few of them. But yeah. We've had some of the greatest quarterbacks. If I'm trying to sell a team, we've had John Elway, we've had Peyton Manning, two of the greatest quarterbacks who have played the game. We've had a rough few years, but we're hopefully on the comeback. We've got one of the greatest coaches that has graced the game as well in Sean Payton. We're the richest team. So if you try to sort of link us to someone in the Premier League, we're probably similar to Man City. We're the richest. Now we're owned by the people who own Walmart. So I know there's a salary cap, but you can link money to training grounds, or your money to your stadium. You can put all your money into there. Bonuses when you're signing players. So if you like money, we're the ones to come and support, really.
Except the big difference, I guess, is Man City have had a successful last.
Yeah, very true.
It's easier to, much easier to buy success in the Premier League and football. Love both forms of football. So let's go into Bo Nix. Let's go this season. Going into the draft, it was obvious the Broncos needed a quarterback. There was loads of talk which teams might be trading up to go and get some of the guys. I think the Broncos, if I'm not mistaken, were 13, was it? 12, 13, around that mark. Were you happy? Now, it seems like an easy question, this, but in the moment of the draft, back in April, May time, were you happy with Bo Nix?
I had two targets that I wanted, because I knew I was desperate for a quarterback, obviously. I had Drake May, and I had Bo Nix. Drake May was obviously going to go top three. We did not have the draft capital to move up. We're part of the Russell Wilson trade, part of the Sean Payton trade. We sort of lost a load of draft picks. So trying to move up in the draft was a no-go. There was a lot of talk about it, but is it really worth it when you've got, we're not a full roster by any means. So we needed to build in other places as well, which is something that George Payton, the GM, has sort of done pretty well in the last few years, despite not having the most picks. But to stick at 12 as well and get Bo Nix, who I did want. I know people might not believe me, but I like accurate throwers. He was the most accurate thrower in college football. He's not got the biggest arm. I mean, he's sneakily athletic, which has shocked me this year. I did not know he was that quick, or I didn't know he could move that well. So yeah, it was Drake May or Bo Nix for me. So to stick at 12 and get Bo was, a dream come true, really.
I think you just took the point that I was about to make. I haven't seen every single Broncos game this year, but from what I've seen of them on primetime, it's been his scramble ability, his legs, that I don't think that was an aspect of his game that people really were talking about coming out of college. He'd been in college for more years than most. But, particularly on last weekend's game, I know it was the second string Chiefs team, but watching him scramble at 20 yards here, 30 yards here, and even attempting a lateral at one point, unfortunately went forward. I think everyone, no matter who you supported, were hoping that it did go backwards. But yeah, that's been an amazing part of this game, hasn't it?
It's just, it surprises. I think it surprised Sean Payton as well. I mean, all Sean Payton wanted was an accurate thrower. His game plan is built on those short throws. I mean, I don't know if you've seen, like you said yourself, you've not seen many of the games, but the amount of screen passes and sort of quick handoffs or slants that he has thrown, it's that's his bread and butter. I think he was 28 or 30 against the Chiefs at one point. He went 18 in a row without missing a pass, which broke the Broncos record, franchise record for most completions in a row. And the only one I think he missed was the lateral pass in that time frame. So, like I say, he's sneakily athletic. He makes those chunk plays, and that makes the defense, think, doesn't it? They have to change the game plan if he can do that. So he's doing really well at that.
And speaking of defenses, that is the bread and butter of the Denver Broncos, isn't it? And this season has been no different.
Yeah, well, we've always had those, amazing defenses. We've had the no-fly zone. We've had the pass rush combos of, Miller and Ware together. This year, I don't know what Vance Joseph has done, but he's just let them loose. I think we lead the lead in sacks, lead the lead in QB pressures. Zach Allen, who was brought in last season on the interior D-line, has just been a monster. I think we've got 6 players who have got more than 5 sacks each. So we haven't got one just hogging them all. We've got we've got 2 potential defensive player of the years on the roster. We've got Pat Surtain, who's obviously number 1 cornerback in the league. He just locks down number 1 receivers week in, week out. There was a fun stat actually I saw today on the wide receivers he's faced, totaled up. I think they were from the 5 Pro Bowl receivers against Pat Surtain, and then it showed them against every other cornerback in the league, and Pat Surtain just locked every one of them down. And then the other one is Nick Benito, who is having a contract year really outside linebacker. He's got 2 pick sixes. He's got 3rd highest sacks in the league, so he's a potential candidate there as well.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that. We've got HuddleUK currently. I've got all the writers for the website trying to keep it as fair as possible. So we're having 32 entries into our own little MVP and Player of the Year awards, and both Pat Surtain and Benito are in the current race for that award. I think Surtain, we're about halfway through collecting votes. I think he's just winning it.
It was 50-50 for me between both of them. I went with Pat Surtain. He's had a stellar year, isn't he? He's a cornerstone of any franchise.
And again, just to switch back to offense, not a player who gets a lot of plaudits at times, or a player who, as a Chargers fan, has caused me nightmares in a few of the recent seasons. But Courtland Sutton steadily goes about his business, doesn't he? And he's never going to be compared to the Amon-Ra's, the Chases, the Jeffersons.
Yeah.
But for someone who flies under the radar, has been exceptionally good for another season.
I was going to say, he just doesn't make those flashy, big yard after catches. He doesn't race through once he's caught one. He'll make like a 50-50 ball, a 90-10 ball. He'll catch anything that comes his way in the end zone. A lot of people say he's a number 2 wide receiver. I see him as a number 1. He's the Broncos through and through number 1 receiver. Yeah, we haven't got the most amazing receiver room, but he just sort of leads it. He makes those catches, and he's just about building that chemistry with Bo Nix as well. So I expect them to keep him around next season. There are rumours that they will put him on the trade block, but I just can't see him being traded away when he's that important to Bo Nix.
He caught 2 touchdowns at SoFi Stadium last season that I still can't quite wrap my head around how he caught either of them. And we're going to, as a Chargers fan base, we'll just forget that 2023 season ever existed, really. It all led to Jim Harbaugh and what we're enjoying now. So we'll see it as the transition, which was overall a positive. The other player, just quickly as well, while we're running through a few of them, Marvin Mims, in this last month, I'm not sure, bust would be a really harsh word to use for him, but it didn't start off particularly well, did it? And you said a minute ago, Bo Nix was used for these screen plays, these short passes, and yards after catches where Marvin Mims, as well as that amazing touchdown against the Bengals a couple of weeks ago, he's really come into his own and will be a real threat now in this playoffs.
Well, when we were covering him in training camp, he was on about 75% of people's cut list. He wasn't going to make it out of training camp. He was down at like number 6 wide receiver, probably maybe even lower. We had Vele coming through. We had Troy Franklin coming through. We had Josh Reynolds. We had Tim Patrick at this point. Obviously, he's now gone to the Lions. We had receivers about little Jordan Humphrey was above him. The only reason I think he stayed was because he was a returner. Obviously, he can make flash plays like that. He is absolutely rapid. And in the last month, he has just turned it on. He's had 2 games in a row where he's had 2 touchdowns. And a lot of them he's not making those big catches. I mean, in the last game he did make a really good one, but it's mostly off the screen or the lateral passes where it's a quick throw to the sideline and he just makes people miss, and he's into the end zone like a flash. So, like you said, he's a weapon. I fully expect the Bills this weekend to cut that sort of off because it's been so prevalent in the last couple of weeks. But it's up to Sean Payton now to get him used in other ways. But we've used him as a running back as well recently, and he's gone for big yardage. We operate a 3 running back sort of room, so it looks like we haven't got a good running game, and sometimes we haven't, but it's probably sneakily better than people think.
I think Javonte Williams, not to be negative, but he was a player in that rookie year. He's still, he's still a good running back, but I think he probably hasn't hit that ceiling that lots of fans, fantasy football fans, and particularly Denver Broncos fans were hoping he'd get. Obviously, injuries have played a huge role in that, but he still has been, a core piece of the puzzle this year.
He suffered one of the worst injuries I've seen. I mean, he tore his knee, his ACL, his MCL. He tore pretty much anything you could have in your knee. It was gone. So to come back from that is amazing, to be honest. And to even play football again was, something I don't know if he expected to. But he came back really quickly as well. We were slow in putting him back in the lineup. And he used to be a bowling ball, pretty much. He'd go for about 10 yards after contact. It didn't matter who was on him. He had about 5 men he'd drag him. But we've operated this 3 running back system this year. We've got Javonte Williams as the number 1, Jaleel McLaughlin as the speed back, he's been sort of the number 1 in the last few weeks, and we've got the rookie Audric Estime, who is looking likely to sort of replace that Javonte role. He's a bit of a downhill runner and will knock people through. He's absolutely massive.
He's enormous, isn't he? You said bowling ball a minute ago. That is exactly what Estime is. I know, for me, a bit old-fashioned, a bit like in football, British football. Sometimes this tiki-taka nice stuff. Yeah. Just give me a big dude in the NFL who's going to carry some players through. And
this is why I like playing the fullback. I love having a fullback on the field. You just follow their runner and let them smash people. And let's go downfield quickly.
Yeah, I mean, this is the Broncos episode, but again, to bring back to the Chargers, I've loved watching Scott Matlock this year. It's been a lot of fun seeing Gus Edwards or J.K. Dobbins or whoever it might be.
He is an absolute monster. He lined up against the Broncos like, who is that? He's not one that people would know of, really. So we saw him for the first time, and I was like, okay, he's going to be a problem.
Yeah, I love it. I think going into this season, a lot of people thought the Chargers would just be running the ball down people's throats, and yeah. I think the more that Greg Roman and Harbaugh have got to see Herbert, and McConkey has been amazing for the Chargers this year. They've become much more of a passing team than I thought, and a lot of people thought they would be. But they do still have that grind with Matlock, particularly when it gets near the goal line. That it's just, I love to watch it.
That's Harbaugh's bread and butter, though, isn't it? All through his college days, he puts money into that O line, and then he just runs behind them. That's his game.
Let's stick with the Chargers for a minute then. Let's look ahead to the playoffs. We'll go through the AFC side of things. I think on paper, this might be a bolt hat on here slightly, but I think the Chargers-Texans game is the closest one on paper. I think the one that most people are undecided on if you were looking at people's votes. How would you see that one going? You've probably seen the Chargers more because they're in the same division. Yeah. The Texans went into the year high-flying, everyone talking about CJ Stroud as one of the next best things, but wheels have fallen off them slightly in the last couple of months.
I was going to say they're not coming in on the greatest of form. They have sort of disappointed this season after CJ Stroud's season last year. He was incredible. Him and is it Dell at the wide receiver spot? He's just that chemistry was there, and he's got Nico Collins. Two of the best wide receivers in there. I think Joe Mixon is a sneakily good running back there, isn't he? He's added a different dynamic to that offense. But I do see the Chargers winning that one. They're on better form. I hate to say it, but we might see you somewhere down the line in the playoffs.
Never know.
But I do see the Chargers winning that. Herbert's just an incredible quarterback, isn't he? I did not want the Chargers to draft him when they did, but seeing his name go was a disappointment for me. I wanted him at some point, but we were never going to get him.
There's a lot of talk during that draft. There's so many quarterbacks went in that draft. It wasn't necessarily tipped to be the best quarterback draft class, but it was turned into one of the best of the last 10 years or so. There's real talent came through that. Broncos game then, Bills away. On paper, that's what happens, I guess, when you are the 7th seed. You are always going to be facing a tough test. This is tough, though.
Yeah, you're playing the potential MVP in Josh Allen. He's had an amazing season. You're playing in Bills territory, in the cold. It's going to be loud. It's not going to be nice. It will come down to how well the Broncos can move the ball on offense. Defensively, I think we're good enough to stop them enough times. It just depends if we can score. If we get out quickly, you never know. We've started quickly in the last few games. Bo Nix has played well coming out, but it'll be a different environment. Playoffs. We've not got many people who've been to the playoffs in the team. It's a great story for the Broncos. Garrett Bowles, who's not been there his whole career, and Cortland Sutton, like you said before, this is their first playoff appearance in the career. So it's going to be new for them, and they're the leaders of the team. So how are they going to lead it in that way? But Sean Payton obviously has been to the playoffs. He's been to the Super Bowl. He will know how to set them up. Interestingly, we've had the Bills logo painted on our practice field. We've had the end zone painted in Bills colour. We're leaving nothing to chance. So we're practicing as if we are playing there.
That's fantastic. So the whole training pitch right now in Denver looks like it doesn't. That's fantastic. Yeah. Brilliant.
It's happened all season, but the end zones aren't usually painted. Obviously, for the playoffs, we've stepped up a little notch. But I guess that you can do that when you've got the richest owners. It doesn't really matter.
Well, yeah, it does come back to the money, doesn't it? Yeah. I think it'll be a really, really interesting game. That, as you say, the defense. The only thing where you look at the Bills and think they are a bit weak is the receiving talent.
Yeah.
With no disrespect to anyone, the Shakirs and Colemans, they're still very good NFL players, but they don't have that guy.
I think their number one is Amari Cooper, isn't it?
Yeah.
I can see Satan trailing in for a lot of the game. We've got a very good young cornerback room. We've got obviously best cornerback PS2. We've got Riley Moss, and then we've got Jaquan McMillan, who's turned out to be one of the best slot corners so far this season, who will sort of cover that slot receiver. We are a little bit weak at safety, but the defense has been playing pretty lights out lately. Vance Joseph will have them running blitzes, I'm sure. You never know where blitz is going to come from with him.
When I think Sean Payton, this is probably a really bad take, but whenever I think Sean Payton in the playoffs, I can't not think of the Saints-Rams game. If I was a Saints fan, it would haunt me, I think, forever with the non-defensive pass interference call. I can't remember who the Rams player was in question. If you've got that in your locker, please. I can't remember his name, but the camera pans to Sean Payton, and the look of disgust.
Interestingly, I think it's the same referee we've got this weekend who didn't call that. So I'm sure I read that somewhere this week that he is responsible for this worst playoff decision in Sean Payton's career and also the Denver Broncos' career. I can't quite remember which one it is, but he was the referee.
Oh, that's not a good omen.
No.
I don't want to hear that.
Right.
And what's the other game? There's the Ravens-Steelers is the other one, which...
I see a blowout coming there. Ravens.
Yeah, I didn't want to say it, but I feel the same. And you've seen Russell Wilson as Broncos fans more than most, and obviously now at the Steelers. With how they started with Justin Fields, I genuinely thought there was a chance they were going to keep running with Fields, pardon the pun, but literally and metaphorically keep running with Fields. It started well when they brought Wilson in. People kind of went, oh, this is working, he's unlocking the best of Pickens. But when I said the rails have fallen off Houston, it really has gone in Pittsburgh, hasn't it?
I can't see them winning this game. Russell Wilson is not that quarterback anymore. He's not got the legs. I'm so biased against him now because he's caused me so much heartache in the last 2 years. We're paying him to be there. We have a league high 89 million in dead cap because of him. For the Broncos, I'm going to go back to the Broncos here. But for the Broncos to be in the playoffs with that dead cap hit is just incredible. But like I say, he's caused so much heartache. He's not that guy. He won't lead them. He can't beat the Ravens. They're too good. They absolutely destroyed us earlier in the season. So I don't see it being close. I see the other two games being close in the AFC. But this one, I just think it's an easy one. Ravens
Yeah.
up.
I've been looking at loads of sort of. I get into a bit of a rabbit hole sometimes on X or YouTube or whatever it may be, watching people's predictions, and I I don't know if it's people just saying Mike Tomlin and the Steelers. They've got the experience that historically a good defense, but so many of the predictions I'm seeing are Ravens by 4, Ravens by 5. I'm like, in my head it's going to be double digits, but maybe that's just from this side of the pond what we're seeing. I would be surprised if that's not a very one-sided game. And as much as I would like, and I mean this genuinely, either to see the Broncos or the Chargers go all the way in the AFC, I think it's going to come down to the Bills or the Ravens. They're the two who
I think.
look. Well, the other team we haven't said is the Chiefs. I mean, both of our teams suffered horrifically heartbreaking losses, as did the Raiders as well at Arrowhead.
They have been the luckiest 15-win team I've ever known. They're all one-score games, and they've all just gone their way somehow. They just pull it. I don't know. They've got this like voodoo. They just pull it out of the bag. It's very annoying as a Broncos fan, and you get this as a Chargers fan, that it's frustrating week in, week out. You root against them every week, and they just pull out. Mahomes does something. He gets the referee out of his pocket, and then he'll get a call his way. Yeah, it's frustrating, but I don't see them threatening it. I can't see them doing the 3-peat.
I don't want to say that they won't, because if you keep saying they won't, then they're going to do it. And I've got a good friend. I live in Cardiff in South Wales. I've got a good friend who's a Chiefs fan, and if I ever bump into him on a Sunday, the smile on his face, it's getting frustrating now. And I like Ben; he's a good friend, but like one point, I just hope that smirk disappears, because I keep watching the Super Bowl with him every year, and every year he's the one celebrating at the end while we're all looking miserable as they've done it again. And as you say, there's a point, isn't there, though, where luck isn't luck anymore. You have to admire it. I remember seeing some analysis of the blocked field goal against yourself.
It was a great play.
It's a brilliant play, isn't it?
It was heartbreaking to watch, but then they'd seen that weakness on the Broncos field goal team and exploited it. I was on the phone to my dad, and I just sort of hung up as quickly. I just screamed the place down. Horrendous. As a Broncos, it's the first time you've gone there you're in Arrowhead, you've got a chance to win, and we've not won there for years. The last time we beat the Chiefs, I was there over in Denver. Oh, let's not talk about that one.
Let's move on. Let's move on from the Chiefs. I don't think they're going to do it this year. I could be wrong. I'm hoping to speak to the HuddleUK's Chiefs writer, Shelley, at some point during the playoffs as well. I'm sure she will give a other side of the story a fairer balance than having a Broncos and a Chargers fan talking about the Chiefs. Feel like we're ganging up on them a bit, because they are still a very good team. There's no denying that, and they can beat any team on the day. They have beaten the Ravens already this year. It's only the Bills who have beaten them, so it'll be interesting to see if they can do it again. Let's hope they don't. But you never know. I wanted to play. I messaged you ahead of time. I wanted to play a quick game. Put you on the spot to a point about your love of Bo Nix. Now, of course you love Bo Nix, and everyone in Mile High and everyone with a Broncos jersey, you can see your Von Miller one there in the background as well. Everyone's going to love Bo Nix, but I want to play, as cheesy as the name, Bo Nix or No Nix. I'm going to give you a few other quarterbacks in the NFL, and just purely, and I want you to take into account age going forward, not just this season's performance, but if you were offered Bo Nix or quarterback X, which one? And I'm going to start where I think it will be Bo Nix and get gradually harder. So let's go with Bo Nix or Jameis Winston, who had that great game against each other the other week.
That's an easy one, isn't it? That's Bo Nix.
I'm
not having 30 for 30 guy in my team.
I do love a good Jameis Winston game. That game, the Broncos Browns game, is one of my favourite games of the season.
Slinging it, I tell you what.
Yeah, Jerry Jeudy. I bet you didn't see that coming.
Well, that was his Super Bowl. Jerry Jeudy won. We didn't get the best out of him. He's a quality wide receiver, so he was desperate to prove something against us.
He did, though, as well, mind you. Yeah. I think I could be misquoting it, but I think the stat was the most yards by a receiver against a former team ever in NFL history. It was a ridiculous game. But yes, that's an easy Bo Nix. I thought that would be an easy Bo Nix. Bo Nix or Bryce Young?
Bo Nix.
Bo Nix again.
He's had a good second half of the season, I think. Bryce Young.
Unbelievable second half of the season.
Doing really, really well.
Him and CJ Stroud were reverse of those two from the end of last year to now. I'm not saying that you'd necessarily take Bryce Young over CJ Stroud, but you would have to really think about it now. It was a no-brainer this time last year. So,
really good quarterback, but I'm sticking with my man.
Sticking with Bo Nix. Okay, Tua Tagovailoa.
Injury prone. He does stupid things, dives forward, not sure he's got much left. I'd be scared watching him as my quarterback. Did you see the everyone cheer when he slid on that first game back?
Yes, I did.
The crowd erupted.
Although he played, I think it was against us after the Chargers when he came back, and he just dived head first into someone's knee, and you never, don't care who it is, if it's your rivals or your own team, you hate seeing things like that. You hate seeing injuries. They're terrifying, but sometimes you just have to. Well, you scratch your head a bit and you go, just protect yourself. I know
not worth it in the end, is it?
Your life and your health has to come first at times, and I wish Tua all the best, and I hope he never suffers another concussion or anything close to it, because he's a great quarterback. When he's fit and firing, really is. But I think, like you, if I was a general manager running a team, I'd prefer the guaranteed health or the better chance of health of Bo Nix. Okay, we'll get to a few more tougher ones then. Jordan Love.
Oh, highest paid quarterback, isn't he? He's had a great season again. He's accurate. He's got a deep arm.
I think a good shot coming,
doesn't he? He's got his chance now.
But
Bo. Sticking with Bo.
Sticking with Bo Nix. Okay, I thought this was where it would get a bit tough. Bo Nix, or I had to throw this one in, Justin Herbert.
I did want him in the draft. He's got good hair as well, hasn't he?
He's a lovely man.
Oh, he's got a cannon of an arm.
He has.
Good wide receivers. He's dangerous. Oh, this is hard.
Can you? The question is, can you, as a Broncos fan, bring yourself to say you'd pick the Chargers quarterback as well?
No, he's a quality player. That's the issue. You've got a good chance of winning games with both of them. Really, they're both very accurate. They're both good on the move.
I'll throw, just before you answer, then I'll throw Joe Burrow in there as well. Then, if you had Joe Burrow, Justin Herbert, Bo Nix, if you had a keep trade cut on the three,
oh my days, keep trade cut.
Or start, sit, sell, or whatever the three people have.
Joe Burrow has had an insane season, really, stats-wise.
Yeah.
It's just, the defense there is terrible. They should have been in the playoffs.
Yeah.
They released that video, didn't they, of watching the week 19. It was on Hard Knocks, and watching their fate, and obviously they were all watching, trying to urge the Chiefs backups to beat us. And the Chiefs backups are like, no, we don't want it. We don't want you in the playoffs. I'm starting Joe Burrow. He's class. He's an elite quarterback. He's a top 5 quarterback in the league. Bo Nix, you hope that is the future for him. Is he there yet? Probably not. I'd put him in the top 10 this year, quite easily, I think. I've put Joe Herbert in there as well. So
you'd say you'd have Burrow would be above.
Burrow would be number 1, yeah, for sure. And then
your level is
I can't choose between them. I think that they're very, they're very similar players.
I assume the likes of Allen, Lamar, I've put them down. You're
taking them, aren't
you? You're taking them, aren't you? Even, yeah.
Interesting, obviously, Broncos passed on. A lot of people passed on Josh Allen. We talked about the Chubb in that draft. Who's now the Dolphins outside linebacker, but Broncos country would have absolutely lynched Allen for his first couple of seasons. We'd have ruined him. But he's just insane. I don't know how he does it sometimes.
He's a great comeback story as well. I mean, a bit like we've said about Bryce Young. I think sometimes in the NFL it is cutthroat. Professional sport is cutthroat, but teams are really quick to move on, particularly when it comes to quarterbacks. And Josh Allen is a brilliant story of sticking with your guy and persevering. And that actually is a lovely segue into the final thing I wanted to talk about, which was, I'm not going to go through all of your personal votes in the HuddleUK Awards, but Allen is your MVP selection. He's mine as well. Who was the player you were tossing? Because I think a lot of people are throwing Allen, Lamar, and then some people Barkley as well.
Yeah,
the options.
I was up. It was 50-50 between Allen and Barkley for me. I put Barkley down as my offensive player of the year. His season has been insane. He didn't even play in the last game. I wanted him to get the record. He chose his teammates over him, didn't he? I think he would have got offered the chance to play, but he said no. But yeah, Josh Allen is Josh Allen. He's the MVP of the league for me. He's done everything. He wins games. He makes clutch plays. He does stupid things. Like I don't know how he makes some of his passes, but he does, or how he escapes some sacks. I think the Bills have played. This is just a random fact here. I think they've not beaten a team this year that have been in the top 5 of sacks.
Oh, really?
So, which gave me a little bit of hope.
Manifesting now. Okay, I see.
Yeah, a little bit, but obviously we're number 1 in sacks, so you never know. Put him under pressure, probably wind him up a little bit, but yeah, you never know.
You never know, and as I said, I don't think that's unlike the Ravens Steelers game. I see that Broncos Bills game being really close. I'd be surprised if that's done and dusted by half time or the third quarter.
Close.
I think it's going to go down to the wire. And the one of the I know you've picked a few Broncos players in. I won't go through all of them, but I know your offensive rookie of the year might have been, your defensive player, your head coach of the year, all very justified picks. I know when I sent the poll around, I said to people, you're allowed to put a bit of a bias cap on, but don't go too far. I don't think we've had many silly suggestions so far, which has been quite good. I've been impressed with how restrained people have been. But the big one, the big question to finish off the episode is your Super Bowl prediction.
Who will play and who will win?
I know who you've put as your winner.
Yeah.
Well, you can say, who do you think the final of the Super Bowl even will be?
Obviously, I would love it if the Broncos could somehow get there. It would be the most epic playoff run ever, because we'd have to go Bills, Chiefs, Ravens probably, and then Super Bowl, I'd put my eventual winner as the Lions. So that would be the most insane playoff run I've ever seen, anyone will ever see. But I think it'll be Ravens, Lions, with the Lions coming out on top. Their offense is just insane. I'm on Ross so bad. I pick him up in every fantasy league I can. I can never get him, but I try and get him. He's just insane wide receiver. Just makes these massive plays time and time again. He averages like 7 catches a game. It's just mad. I'd love Tim Patrick as well to get a Super Bowl ring. If I had to, former Bronco, quality player. So.
He popped up with a couple of touchdowns a couple of weeks ago. I knew he'd gone there, but he hadn't done a lot.
I was surprised that he left the Broncos out. We were all surprised to see him get cut. We thought he had this really good chemistry in training camp with Bo Nix. He was sort of the only one catching regularly from him. These third down conversions. He went, I think, 3 seasons in a row without dropping a pass in the NFL, and then he got injured, signed a contract with us, and that was it. Done. He was off to the Lions after that.
There's a big fantasy football podcast called The Fantasy Footballers. I'm not sure if you've ever listened to it, but they always call Tim Patrick Fireball Jones because they say his name isn't NFL enough in Tim Patrick. Yeah. Every time I hear him, I call him Fireball Jones. It just really makes me laugh at. And he's been a real steady wide receiver. The Lions, as you say, I think they're a lot of people's pick.
Yeah.
I think the Eagles are the team on the NFC side that can, if it's a big if Jalen Hurts is past the concussion and fit, I think they're the team that could scupper them. I'm not sure if you watched the Lions game, the Lions-Vikings game the other night.
Denver, yeah.
It's a bit of a disappointment, I thought, when we stay up that late. Yeah, and up until midway through the third, the Vikings were still in touching distance, but for 2 teams that were 14-2 going into the game, you saw the team that were 14-2, if you know what I mean, and the team that have won some games here and there to help boost their record. With no disrespect to the Vikings, they're a very good team with some very good players.
Yeah.
The Lions are the full package, aren't they? They really are the real deal.
They're a scary team to sort of try and face, I think. I'm glad we haven't had to play them for a while. They've got wide receivers for days. They've got a quarterback who can get the ball to them. They've got a very good running game. They've got a 2-pronged attack there when Montgomery's back. Jameer Gibbs is one of the most electric players I've seen. He's got it all. He can catch, he can run, he can probably throw the ball as well if you gave it him. But yeah, they're a scary team to face. I wouldn't like to face them.
You mentioned fantasy football a minute ago. Would you have any, if in a dynasty league, are there any running backs you'd have over Jahmyr Gibbs right now?
Nope, probably not. No, he's just that he's two-pronged, isn't he? He can catch, and he's a weapon every week, whether it's in the passing game or the running game. You shut him down running, suddenly you have to stop him catching it and getting into the end zone. I think he gets in most weeks. It's a sort of a surefire thing if you put the bets on. Jahmyr Gibbs is in that acca, isn't he? So.
I've had a few of those this year. Yes, not much success, it must be said. But he, as you say, he seems like a surefire, and I think the Lions are winning that poll at the moment for most people's favourite to win the Super Bowl, and there's not really many arguments against them. To round things off, then, if the Broncos were to go Bills, Chiefs, Ravens, let's say, and then get there, sum it all up for me. The Broncos' hope for now the playoffs. What's the unrealistic ambition and how they would do it?
If that happened, I would have a heart attack. Honestly, I wouldn't be able to. Oh my days! The annoying thing is, I can never book the day off after Super Bowl. I work in a school, so I can never book it off. So watching that would absolutely be insane. It relies. We're a defense team. We're one of the top defenses in the league. It would all rely on that. Whether you have to win the turnover battle. We've done really well getting a lot of interceptions this year. Obviously, the top of sacks. We've got to let Benito, Jonathan Cooper often goes under the radar a bit. Zach Allen, John Franklin Myers was one of the greatest pickups of the season. I have no idea how we got him from the Jets for that cheap. We've got Dondre Tillman, who's people will never have heard of him. He's got 5 or 6 sacks this year. They all chip in. You got to hope PS2 is on his usual elite form, shutting down these top receivers. But yeah, hopefully, you never know. Playoff football is one-off games, aren't they? They swing from the pendulum swings every sort of 5 minutes. So you get a bit of luck along the way. You never know. I think we need to play in the throwback jerseys as well. Not lost in them yet. They're a bit of luck. So
they're really nice, aren't they?
I'm being biased, but they're one of the best in the league. And a lot of the throwback jerseys and the colour rush that they've had in the past are my favourite jerseys anyway. But the Broncos is up there. They've already redesigned them this year. Actually, the last time they changed the uniforms, we went to 2 Super Bowls and won 2 Super Bowls in a row. Bit more superstition there, manifestation at its best.
Well, you've put up lots of reasons why it is going to be, or at least
money on the Broncos. Yeah,
you never know, as you say. Mark, thank you very, very much. Just one last chance. Plug yourself. I know Broncos EU is up to about 6,000 followers, I think, now on social media. It's a great site. If anyone's listening, please go follow over there. We're at Join the Huddle UK. And Mark, just final 30 seconds to plug yourselves.
First of all, thank you so much for inviting me on. It's been an absolute pleasure to talk ball. You often don't get a chance to talk it at work or anything like that. So to talk ball with someone who knows just if not more than me, it's an amazing opportunity, and I thank you for inviting me on. But personally, you can follow me. My name's on the screen. It's at MW Tonge on Twitter. That's my personal one. I talk a little bit of ball on there, a lot of Broncos. You can follow the group Broncos Europe on Facebook. We've got our own Facebook group. There's a Discord link on our Twitter, so we've got a community on there that talks on game days during the week. But we're on Twitter at Broncos EUR. Hopefully, we'll get a website soon as well. So you never know.
Yeah, well, fantastic. And just to follow that on, we're HuddleUK on Facebook and at Join the Huddle on Twitter. I keep saying Twitter. I'm going to have to eventually get used to saying X. And on Instagram, it's www.huddleuk.com. Mark is going to be joining our team and writing some Broncos content, hopefully about some playoff success, we hope, for the Broncos country. Let's ride. Thank you very much for joining the Huddle today. We really appreciate it. We're going to have hopefully weekly podcasts going forward through the playoffs, and then some more during the off season around combine time and draft time. Hopefully we'll let speak to Mark again at some point in the future. Thank you very, very much for joining us, and enjoy Wildcard Weekend.